Have you ever just like completely choked trying to hit a high note? I know I'm not the only one, right?
Oh, for sure. It's something that just about everyone, from people who only sing in the shower to like seasoned professionals, struggles with at some point.
Yeah, totally. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're checking out this article from K&M Music School, How to Sing High Notes and Avoid Common Mistakes, and it's got a ton of good stuff.
Definitely. Like, even if you don't think you're like the next, what's her name?
Mariah Carey.
Yeah, Mariah Carey. It's still got some super useful tips for anyone who wants to improve their singing voice.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so let's jump into it. One thing I always get tripped up on is this whole thing about voice types. Is it really true that some people are just, I don't know, born with the ability to hit those super high notes?
Well, the article actually suggests that everyone has like a natural range, but it might be more flexible than people think. Like with the right training, you could potentially expand your range way beyond what you think is possible.
And seriously, so you're saying I could actually like train my voice to hit those Mariah Carey notes after all? Okay, now I'm really interested.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it takes work and dedication, but the potential is definitely there. The article goes into detail about how our voices are basically like instruments, and understanding how they work is key to unlocking their full potential.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, what is it about our voices that actually allows us to hit higher or lower notes? I've always wondered about that.
So basically, it all comes down to vibrations, right? When we sing, our vocal cords vibrate, and the speed of those vibrations is what determines the pitch of the sound we make. Faster vibrations mean a higher note, and slower vibrations mean a lower note. Kind of cool, right?
It is, actually. And then there's the whole thing about resonance. Like, the article mentions that our sinuses and stuff also play a role in shaping the tone of our voices, especially when we're hitting those higher notes. It's like we each have our own little acoustic chamber going on.
Exactly. Just like the shape of, say, a guitar's body affects its sound, the unique anatomy of our own vocal tract influences the resonance and timbre of our voices.
That's amazing. It's like each voice is truly unique, right down to how it resonates.
Definitely. And that's why the article stresses how important it is to, first off, figure out what your voice type is. Like, are you a soprano, alto, tenor, bass? Knowing this can help you figure out a comfortable range for your voice to work with.
Right, so we're not all trying to be Mariah Carey if our voices aren't really meant for that. Speaking of which, the article also talks about breath control. And I swear, that's something I always struggle with, especially when I try to hit those higher notes.
Yeah, breath control is definitely key, kind of like the engine that powers your voice. The article really emphasizes this technique called diaphragmatic breathing.
Okay, diaphragmatic breathing. I'm all ears because I feel like I'm constantly running out of breath.
Basically, it's about learning to use your diaphragm, which is that big old muscle that sits underneath your lungs, to draw air deeper into your body.
So it's not just about sucking in as much air as possible.
Not really. It's more about engaging that diaphragm muscle to create a steady stream of air that supports your voice, especially when you're hitting those higher notes.
Wow, okay. I'm kind of starting to see how that would make a difference. Does the article have exercises for that, or?
Yeah, totally. One that it talks about that I've always found really helpful is called the book exercise. Basically, you lie down with a book on your stomach and you practice breathing in a way that makes the book rise and fall.
Interesting. It sounds super simple, but I bet it's one of those things that's actually way harder than it seems.
It definitely takes some practice, but it's a great way to become more aware of your diaphragm and how to engage it properly.
Okay, cool. I'm definitely going to have to try that one. And it's not just about singing either, right? Good breathing is important for stress management and all sorts of things.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a secret weapon for both your physical and mental health, really. But hey, before we get too ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
Well, we need to talk about warming up those vocal cords.
Yeah, warming up. I mean, I know it's important, but honestly, sometimes it feels like such a chore. What makes it so crucial? Can't I just jump right into singing?
Well, you wouldn't run a marathon without stretching first, would you?
True.
It's the same idea with your voice. Warming up your vocal cords is super important for preventing injuries and getting your voice ready to perform at its best.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the deal with all those weird noises singers make when they're warming up? The lip trills and the siren sounds and stuff. Is that stuff actually necessary?
Oh, absolutely. Those quote-unquote weird noises are actually carefully designed exercises that target specific parts of your vocal technique. Like Lip trills are awesome for relaxing and engaging your vocal cords, and they help to encourage proper breath support too.
Okay, so it's like a gentle massage for the voice, getting it ready for action. I like it. What about those siren sounds? I always feel kind of silly doing those.
Don't underestimate the power of a good siren. They're actually really effective for smoothly transitioning between your lower and higher registers, which is super important for hitting those high notes with ease and control.
Right, like bridging the gap between our chest voice, which we use for talking, and that whole like head voice thing that lets us hit those super high notes.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so we left off talking about head voice. I gotta say, it sounds kind of mystical, you know? Like, what even is head voice?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that sounds kind of mysterious,
Yeah.
but the article actually does a pretty good job at explaining it, I think.
Okay, good, because I need it broken down.
So think about it this way. When we talk normally, we're mostly using our chest voice, right?
Right.
It's like that lower, richer part of our range that we can actually feel resonating, like right here in our chest.
Yeah, like when someone says, oh, they've got a deep voice, they're talking about that chest voice sound, right?
Totally. Now, head voice, on the other hand, is higher and a lot lighter. It's what gives us those effortless kind of soaring notes that you hear a lot in pop music or opera.
Okay.
And you can actually feel the vibrations more in your head when you're doing it right, which is probably why they call it head voice, I guess.
Ah, that makes sense. So it's almost like shifting gears in a car, you know? Going from that powerful engine of the chest voice to something a bit higher and lighter.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And just like learning to shift those gears smoothly takes, practice and getting a feel for it. Developing your head voice also needs those targeted exercises and consistency to really master.
So let's talk about those exercises. I'm ready to channel my inner Ariana Grande here. What does the article recommend?
All right, so one exercise that's pretty classic is the descending ooh scale. You basically start on a note that feels high but still comfortable, and you slowly glide down to a lower note on an ooh sound, almost like you're sighing with, like relief or something.
So it's about getting your voice used to navigating those higher pitches, but in a controlled way, using a sound that feels familiar. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the article also talks about this other technique called the yawn sigh technique. So basically like initiate a yawn. You know how you feel that stretch in your throat? So you do that, and then as you exhale, you let out this soft ah sound, letting your voice just gently float down.
That actually sounds kind of amazing. I can already feel myself relaxing just thinking about it.
Right. And the cool thing about these exercises is that they're super approachable, even if you don't think you're like vocally gifted or anything. It's not about forcing your voice. It's about gently coaxing it to explore these higher ranges.
Yeah, I like that. No pressure, just exploration. Speaking of things that can impact how we sing, though, the article goes into some surprising stuff about, like, vocal health in general. I mean, I know shouting and overuse are bad, but is there more to it?
Oh, yeah. There's actually a lot more to it than people realize. The article emphasizes this whole connection between our overall health and our vocal health, which is something a lot of people overlook.
Interesting. Like what? Give me an example.
Well, hydration's a big one. Seems obvious, but our vocal cords need to be properly lubricated to vibrate the way they're supposed to.
Oh, right. Because if they're dry, they're not going to, move as smoothly or something.
Exactly. It's just like a car engine needing oil.
Yeah.
Our voices need proper hydration to really function at their best. And it's not just what we drink either, but what we eat too, right?
Oh, yeah. Diet matters for singing.
Big time. The article even points out specific foods that can actually mess with your singing. Like, how everyone says to drink warm milk before a performance?
Yeah.
Well, turns out dairy products in general can actually increase mucus production, which can make it harder to sing clearly.
Whoa, so much for that warm glass of milk. Okay, what else should we avoid?
Spicy foods are another one. They can lead to acid reflux, which can irritate your vocal cords, and no one wants that.
Man, so many things to think about. It's amazing, though, how much being mindful of what we eat and drink can actually impact something as specific as our singing voices. Okay, so we've got breathing down, warming up, even what to eat, but even with all the right techniques, practice can be the hardest part,
Yeah.
Especially if you're really aiming for those Mariah Carey level high notes.
Absolutely. It can definitely feel daunting. But remember what we were saying earlier about it not being about instant perfection?
Right.
This is where the article gets really cool and offers this super practical piece of advice that might surprise you.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the secret weapon for effective practice?
Recording yourself.
Seriously, record myself. That sounds kind of terrifying, to be honest.
I know, right? It can seem scary, but the article makes this point, and I think it's a really important one. Recording yourself isn't about, like, judging yourself and focusing on every little mistake. It's about gaining self-awareness.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Like, are you really maintaining that breath support throughout the song? Are those high notes coming out clear and strong? Or are they strained? When you record yourself, you can pinpoint areas to work on that you might not even notice in the moment just by, feeling it.
Right. It's like having another set of ears, but without the pressure of anyone actually hearing you except yourself.
Exactly. And here's another thing. The article mentions that even professional singers, with those powerhouse voices we all envy, they record themselves.
Really?
It's not about being perfect. It's about constantly trying to be better. And recording yourself helps you do that.
That is actually really encouraging. So it's something even the pros do, not just something we do when we're starting out.
Exactly. It's a lifelong journey, not a destination.
I love that. Okay, so we've got recording ourselves for practice. What other practice tips does the article recommend?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is just to be patient with yourself and keep at it. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a killer singing voice.
Very true.
Even practicing just a few minutes every day can make a huge difference over time.
It's all about building those positive habits, right? Okay, well, this has been super eye-opening. I'm already feeling inspired to, at least try warming up a bit and maybe even dust off that old microphone. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll surprise myself and hit those high notes without completely choking.
Hey, I believe in you. And you never know, you might just discover you have a hidden talent for this.
That'd be amazing. This has been an awesome deep dive into the world of singing and hitting those high notes. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier. That whole idea of embracing our unique voices.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's such a key part of all this.
You know what? I'm actually starting to see recording myself less about being super critical and more about, like you said, self-discovery.
Right. It's like having that honest feedback.
Totally. And it's encouraging that the article mentions that even the pros, like those singers we all look up to, they use recording as a tool to get better. It's not just a beginner thing.
Yeah, it really goes to show that there's always room for improvement, no matter how experienced you are. Even Freddie Mercury, right? That guy was insanely talented.
Totally.
But he was also known for being super meticulous with recording and rehearsing. It was part of his process.
I love that. Dedication.
Yeah.
So we've got our recording set up ready to go. Any other practice tips from the article we should keep in mind?
I think the biggest one, honestly, is just be patient. Remember what we said. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
And neither are amazing singing voices. But even practicing a little bit each day can make a huge difference over time.
It's all about consistency, right? Those little things add up.
Exactly. It's about the journey.
This has been awesome. I feel like I learned so much. And more importantly, I'm actually excited to start practicing and maybe even try recording myself. Who knows? Maybe I'll actually surprise myself with how much I improve.
I have no doubt you will. That's the best part, You might uncover a hidden talent you didn't even know you had.
Seriously. Okay, so we've covered breathing, warming up, even what to eat and drink to help our singing voices. But beyond all the technical stuff, I think what really sticks with me is just how important it is to embrace what makes our voices unique.
Absolutely. That's what gives a voice character.
Right. And it lets us express ourselves authentically.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're just starting out or you've been singing for years, keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, have fun. You never know, maybe one day we'll be hearing your voice hitting those high notes on the radio. This has been The Deep Dive, and we'll catch you next time.